like to welcome you again to the Arab American
Thank
News.
you. Thank you.
And also, I wanted to welcome you to our community because you were just recently appointed to be the special agent in charge in Michigan. And we've just recently met. And this is your second visit here. But I know you are visiting the community
Yep.
organizations, trying to meet with movers and shakers and community
Yep.
representatives. So tell me a little bit about you, Steve. First of all, I want to get your name right.
Okay.
Stephen
Yeah.
D'Antonio.
Yeah. Good listener. D'Antonio. Yeah.
How do you say it?
I say D'Antuono.
D'Antuono.
Yeah, D'Antuono.
D'Antuono.
Yeah.
And you are from an Italian background.
Yeah, a quarter Italian, quarter Lithuanian, quarter Polish, and a quarter Austrian. So.
Well, I'm 100% Lebanese.
Exactly.
So, and American by choice.
Yes.
So, welcome again to the
Thank you.
Arab American News. Tell me a little bit about yourself, Steve. Now you've been here for how long?
6 months. Yeah.
You've been here for 6 months?
Yeah, mid-September, I got here. So.
And before that?
Before that, I was in Washington, D.C. as the financial crime section chief. So I was over the whole white-collar crime program for the FBI.
Okay. And before that?
Before that, I was in St. Louis as the assistant special agent in charge for the St. Louis field office.
You are from Missouri, right?
No, I'm from Rhode Island.
Oh, you're
yeah,
Rhode
that's
Island.
the accent.
From
Yeah,
Rhode Island.
yeah. So New England.
And so, when you came to Michigan, was that your first time?
Yeah.
First time in Michigan.
Never been.
6 months ago.
Yeah.
How do you see your operation in Michigan?
It's fantastic. We're a top 10 field office, and we're the whole state of Michigan. We're hitting on all programs and working on all different types of programs and stuff, and protecting the citizens of Michigan.
So when a special agent in charge is assigned to Michigan, usually they say this is the largest Arab community in the United States and the most active community.
Yeah.
What did you have in your mind as far as this community when you were assigned here? What kind of an image you have? What kind of perception, or maybe an advanced perception or a picture of Michigan with the Arab American community in it?
So one of my good friends, who's Lebanese, she told me it was the best shawarma here. So I was extremely excited to, as she said, the best shawarma my people make. So I was extremely excited to come up here. And that's.
We have the best falafel too.
Okay.
And the best pastries, chatila,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
Masri sweet. So and also we have the best people in here too.
Yes.
We have a very successful community.
Yes.
So how did you see the community?
I had no preconceptions coming up from DC up here, but once I got involved in the community, it's been absolutely fantastic. Meeting everyone, going to a lot of community meetings, meeting people such as yourself and a lot of the others I've met that are doctors and lawyers and pharmacists and just all walks of life. It's been absolutely eye-opening and fun. That's the best way I can describe it. It's been absolutely
Your experience with the Arab community, other than your experience in here, newly in Michigan, what kind of experience did you have with the community?
I didn't have much. Like in St. Louis, we had a Bosnian community, so that was a large Bosnian community. But I wasn't on that side of the house. I was more or less on the criminal side of the house. So, but I did have involvement with a lot of the Arab Americans when I was acting special agent in charge sometimes, and I'm all about learning and education, right?
So is it an eye-opening for you, an eye-opener to be here in Michigan with the community, large community?
To say no, it was. It's a very large community, but I was more excited about it because I love cultural diversity, right? So I come from a state, Rhode Island's extremely culturally diverse, right? Where if you know anything about our history, Roger Williams, founded the state on religious freedoms, right? And then there's so many different ethnicities within Rhode Island that it wasn't a surprise to me. It's great. I was excited to come to the community and see the differences, not just in Dearborn Heights, and Detroit, but all across Michigan. It's so.
So who you visited? What kind of activities you've had in the community so far in the last 6 months?
So I've been visiting with most recently with a lot of the imams on the opioid crisis and trying to really talk to the imams about getting the word out there on opioid awareness, because we see that as an epidemic here in the United States, definitely within the community, and how much of a taboo it is within the culture. But a lot of people talk about the cultural taboo that opioids are in the Arab American culture, but yeah, I look at comparisons, right? And everything I do, I look at comparisons. It's the same way in my Italian upbringing, you know? Family members that have died of what we suspect is an overdose, and people are saying it's a heart attack, you know, or they die in their sleep. You know, it's the same thing. I try to make comparisons between the cultural diversities because there are comparisons, right? We all share the same, you know, things sometimes. Love of food, right? I love food. So, you know, it's just a different type of food from Italian food. And I love Lebanese food. I love Arab American food. I love Middle Eastern food. It's, you know, I just love the cultural and just learning and being educated about the community. And that's kind of how I stepped in. I want to be educated.
Have you been listening to the communities as far as the issues that they are facing,
Yeah.
as far as their relationship with the FBI,
Yep.
their historic relationship with the FBI, from before Paul Abbott,
Yep.
and after Paul Abbott episode. We have Paul as the before Paul
Correct.
and
Yeah.
after Paul.
Yeah, yeah.
So
It's BP and AP, right?
correct, correct. He was a fantastic
Absolutely, yeah.
individual.
He
We
still
we
is,
love
yeah.
him and we miss him in here.
Yeah.
But I am sure that you were aware about how the FBI was perceived in the community, and he changed his perception to a
Yeah.
great deal, and we hope that this continues. So I want your comments on this.
Absolutely, and that's one thing I'd say as my mission here is breaking down those walls, those silos, right? Those barriers there that divide us between who the FBI is. And in order to do that, you need to be involved in the community. You need to be present in the community, and that's what I've done. So the past 6 months, I've been hopefully people have seen me at different events and galas and or whatever else people are holding dinners or community meetings, and I'm opening the doors. It's not like I said this to somebody the other day. It's not that I'm trying to open the doors. I'm trying to bust open the doors, and I need the community's help. I need community leaders such as yourselves help to help me enter those doors because I want to bring in the personality of my agency into the community so that they see who we are as people. I think when you see people as people, you build a trusting relationship.
And you have an Arab American working for the agency.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, we have several.
Mary Abu Jud.
Mary Apple.
What's her title position?
She's the community outreach specialist. Yeah. So I said this yesterday to someone who I was meeting with. I would love to take credit for hiring Mary because she is absolutely fantastic. But I didn't hire her. She was here before I get a couple months, so she beat me here a couple months. But just her knowledge about the community and the connections that she has here, and then it's been a boon to me for the education, right? Because she helps me, and I don't know everything. I know some things about the culture, but I'm always learning, right? I'm always trying to learn because you don't want to make those mistakes of offending someone, right?
Yeah.
We all have different idiosyncrasies and cultural differences, but you have to learn. It's about education and learning.
Let's get to some of the hard,
Yep.
issues in here. Speaking of the imams, you guys met with the imams regarding the opioid crisis, and we were in the newspaper, one of the pioneers, actually the leading efforts in busting the taboo about opioid, and we got really pushed away and sometimes cussed, because of
Yeah.
because of our coverage. Uh, but speaking about the imams, you've heard what happened to Imam Ilahi at the airport.
I read an article about
and
it. Yeah.
and he was pretty upset and shocked that he was treated this way. Before he left, he was meeting with other imams, the law enforcement agencies, and then when he came back, he was treated like a criminal. Any comments on it?
So my agency doesn't handle the borders, so it's we're not ones that.
What would
that
you tell
question.
What would you tell Imam Ilahi about this, as an agent, as special agent in charge, and also a person in charge of security in this country?
Not knowing the whole situation, there's not much I can really tell them. I wasn't there, so I really can't. I don't really want to comment on that.
Okay.
'Cause
All right,
it's not something that the FBI was involved in.
The FBI was
That's-
not involved.
No, it's another. As far as I know, and I'm in charge of the office, so none of my agents question.
Yeah. See, let me ask you a question. In private meetings before, you and I talked about this, the way the FBI raids some of the homes
Yep.
in the morning, and I told you about certain incidents that they took the kids and the wife of an individual, and they raided his house, and they put him outside in the cold for a couple hours before they made them go in, and they were not criminals in the sense of dangerous criminals.
Yeah.
it was a raid regarding pharmaceutical issues.
Yep.
So, and you told me that this does not work. Can you explain, walk me through this, please?
Absolutely, yeah. So our procedures, and this is where the education, right? Education between FBI and the community
Yeah.
needs to happen, right? So from an FBI standpoint, normally our raids are in the morning. When we do a search warrant or arrest, it's in the morning. We don't just automatically break down a door. We have to have an actual, order from the judge to be able to do that. We knock, announce our presence, and if somebody doesn't come to the door, we have the authority in certain circumstances to enter for our safety as well as the safety of the people that we're entering the house for. When we now I checked on that one incident because I did go back and ask my people, and what I was told is no one was left outside. Maybe they were brought outside for a little bit and then brought back inside. We would never leave somebody out in the cold, especially children or women that were not involved in that. Our procedures.
Okay, you checked on this particular one, and it was not true.
My agents told me it's not true. It was not true. Maybe they were out there for a little bit, but then they were brought back inside. But they weren't out there for hours. But our procedures are to clear the house or clear the area for everyone's safety, and then once we establish the safety and clear the house, then people can be let back in, and we keep them usually in a particular room, right? We'll make sure they're on a couch or in a chair in a dining room or family room or whatever, and then for their safety, we ask them to stay. Now, if they want to leave, they're always able to leave too, right? So from a search warrant standpoint, no one's under arrest, but people are able to leave. A lot of times the homeowners or people there don't want to leave, right? So we try to be very, very cognizant, especially with children, affecting that, how we act very professional. So I take it to heart if I hear that we're not acting professional, because that is what we are born on, and that's what we subscribe to, and that's what we train to do. Be extremely professional, treat people like human beings, and that's what we want to do, and that's the ship I'm running here. So
we used to hear that the FBI goes in, knock on doors, and try intimidating people to speak or to talk. But recently, we have not seen this happening in a great deal of numbers of times in the community. But recently, we've been seeing more and more and FBI, activities in the community in the background of the conflict between the United States and Iran.
Mm-hmm.
It's true that there is a Shia community and Lebanese community in here, and it's true that most of these people come from an area in south of Lebanon where the dominance factor the dominant factor is Hezbollah. But these activities that we see the FBI, like as if that there is some kind of fear from this community, and I just wanted to take this opportunity to tell you that I have not seen anything that could be threatened to the countries and to the institutions that we have here and to the people in Southeast Michigan. How do you see this happening?
So I see
Because I've talked to you about the interview that was conducted with a reporter from Channel 7, and I thought that it was unfair. It kind of spread fears in the community that it was uncalled for, and I vehemently, opposed to something like this, because that would really set back the relationship that we've been trying to establish for a long time between our community and the federal agency, in particular with the FBI.
Yeah, and that's definitely, I take that to heart, because I do not want us taking a step back, right? We have to continue to go forward. We're an information gathering, intelligence gathering organization. So a lot of times when we go talk to the community, it's not like I come talk to you, Osama, and it's not me accusing you of something. I'm just trying to talk to you and get information from you. Do you know anything that's happening overseas? Do you know anything that's going on in Lebanon right now?
I know a lot of things happening in
Lebanon.
Lebanon,
But that's what, what's the
because of my job.
But what's the environment there? What's going on? What's the talk and stuff? And so I'm not accusing you, but I'm trying to gain that information for our intelligence purposes so that we can get a feel for what might happen in the country here, right? So that's all it is. It's not. I think people see, and then again, it's a cultural difference, right? When the FBI comes knocking on the door, it's immediate fear because you don't know what we're going to ask. And that lights go on behind me. I'm driving a car, and I'm a law enforcement officer. I still get nervous, right? And we understand that, so we don't want to put that fear in people. But that's where we come on.
The report spread fears, and it was a sense that, you know, it's a collective punishment for the community, or at least a collective threat to the community that, hey, the FBI is watching every single one of you because of this. And I thought, you know, I talked to the reporter
Yeah.
myself, and I objected to the report, and you and I have spoken about it before, and I thought that it was, you know, it was like a report that kind of threatening to the community more than, you know, like putting the community at ease.
Yeah, yeah, and that's not what the message we want to send, right? That is definitely not a message we want. So we want the involvement of the community because we can't do the job without the community, right? We need people to be able to talk to us, and if they're afraid to talk to us, then it's hard for us to do our job, you know, because we rely on the community for the information, and we're all citizens of this country, or we all at least live here in this country. None of us want to see anything happen in this country, and we're just trying to garner that relationship and that information from citizens. You know,
There is a misconception, Steve, as far as this community is concerned, especially with the federal agencies that in charge of security in our country, that the people here they came from countries that they're war torn, you know, and they understand that they came here seeking a new life, a secured life, a better life for them and their children and their grandchildren. But when they're put in a position that of a mistrust, and people who look at them and with suspicion all the time, it makes them uncomfortable, and they question their loyalties all the time.
yeah,
And the federal agencies should really be aware of the kind of feelings that they're leaving and the residual values of these kind of attitude that continues to even with the community trying very hard to reach out and to be involved, like through bridges and stuff like
yeah,
that. But we continue to feel like we are a strange element, foreign elements in this country that we truly love.
yeah,
And no one that I know of course, there are some bad people out there in every community, but in this community, it has been, you know, for a long time to talk about some elements in the community. We haven't seen anything that's
Yeah.
threatening and we hope we never see.
yeah,
But I just want you to know that from this side of, there is two sides to it,
Mhm.
and there are two sides to it. From this side, that we feel sometimes that this community is always under, you know, the microscope. You
Yeah.
know, there is a suspicion, you know, that something is going on in this community. And as far as I'm concerned, there's nothing going on.
yeah.
There is falafel, there is hummus, there's a lot of activities,
Yeah.
you know, argili, hookahs and stuff like
Yeah.
that, cigars, but there is nothing going on
Yeah.
that threatening.
And I tend to agree with that. I think a lot of communities.
Maybe we
feel
should
the same way.
invite some of the agents to our.
Well, but that's what we're trying to do,
Yeah,
right? It's
yeah.
like, I think people need an education. My agency needs an education. I think we've gotten there, right? Since
Right.
since 9/11, like we've talked about, you know, we've learned, right?
Yeah.
We've learned. I think that's what's alleviated a lot of the concerns from the community as well as the agents, because we've learned through that process of the cultural differences and what people's fears are. Like I had, we have a lot of Arab Americans that work for me. Some Iraqi citizens or former people from Iraq work as linguists for us, right? It's fantastic. So I was talking to several of them, and she brought up the fact that, you know, Iraqis are afraid of dogs. I never knew that.
Yeah.
It was something that I'm like, really? I'm like, why? She goes, well,
Because
because
of
there's
the
so
war.
many wild dogs in Iraq. I'm like, I would have never have known that. So if I'm a dog handler, if I'm an FBI agent, I'm doing a search, I'm bringing a dog in or something like that, I would think nothing of that, right, if I didn't know that. But now knowing that, I would do things differently. Does that make sense? Like, if I know that's gonna cause fear, I'm like, why would I do that to them, right?
Yeah.
So then maybe we pull the dog back. But that's that's stuff that we don't know, that not everyone knows. And it's an education, right? So that's what we're trying to build in the FBI, is that education amongst our agent and analyst population to know the cultural differences, to know the community that we serve. And that's vitally, vitally important because it's building trust. And when, you know, police officers are on the streets, right? The community sees the police officers. They know Officer Joe, Officer Bob. They only see an FBI agent sometimes when the
They knock on the door.
knock happens. And that's the fear, right? Same thing, like if you're driving down the street, you don't see a cop unless you get pulled over, and that's the fear when you see the lights go we need to break that down, right? And, we're not on the streets all the time, but we need to have that education in the community to realize what our mission is and what we're doing and why we may be there. We're not being there accusatorial, maybe it's just information gathering. To say, hey, we understand from somebody, or we understand you might have some information for us. As a citizen of this country, would you like to provide that to us? Because we're all fighting for the same thing, the safety and security of our families, friends, and our relatives here that live in this country.
I heard, I'm not really sure about what I've heard, but I'm going to check with you,
Yep.
that you are considering in stopping the FBI Academy.
No, that's not.
It's not true.
No, that's not true. The Alumni Association right now has been suspended, so.
It's been suspended?
Suspended, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the Citizens Academy's going forward. We're gonna have another one in May.
Okay.
So we definitely.
So the
Citizens
Citizen
Academy's
Academy is going on, the alumni is suspended, has been
going-
suspended.
The association right now has been
For
suspended.
any reason?
For reasons I don't want to.
That we do not want to discuss.
Focused on the Arab community and the Muslim community, but I would like to ask, my next question would be about the Detroit area in general,
Okay.
because just recently, this area is changing like big time. So if the FBI office in Detroit has any plan to reduce the crime rate in the area,
Yep.
is there any like specific plans just to deal with these issues like drug issues? Like,
Yeah.
I've been reading about your experience and it's about the financial crime, public corruption, organized crime, drugs, and counterintelligence.
Yeah.
So do we?
A little bit of counterintelligence.
A little bit,
So
so-
that was way back and that was when I was a financial analyst. So, but counterintelligence.
Do we
means-
have this issue here?
Counterintelligence
Yeah.
issue? Yeah, there's nation states that are trying to infiltrate and steal our secrets. Yeah.
Yeah.
We have companies here that are cutting edge technology.
Yeah.
And we have nation states trying to steal that technology
Yeah,
from us.
so-
It's a security risk, right? So it's a counterintelligence mission. It's a national security mission. It's economic espionage, whatever you want to label it.
Yeah, so I'm interested just to know if the FBI office has any policy just to reduce the public corruption.
Well, we're always fighting for public corruption. We have tons of cases on public corruption as within Detroit and across Michigan, right? Because I handle the whole state of Michigan as well. But definitely within Detroit, there's a lot of public corruption cases that we're looking at.
Right.
Violent crime cases too, I'll hit on that as well. We have a huge initiative going on right now called Operation Relentless Pursuit,
Mhm.
which was announced by the Attorney General, Barr, about a month ago. I think it was a month ago, right? Maybe a month and a half.
weeks or so, yeah.
Came here and did a press conference about that. It's a DOJ initiative, Department of Justice initiative, which is us, ATF, DEA, and U.S. Marshals to
Right.
reduce the violence here. If you can see from my bio, I also worked in St. Louis for
Yeah.
3 years, which is
Yeah.
at any point in time, Detroit and St. Louis are vying for #1 murder capital in the country. St. Louis was #1 for a while, and I think Detroit's pushed them over the edge. So I have the experience of working in that stuff. I have the experience of building task forces and combating that. And we're doing everything we possibly can. Because it's a community problem. There's a violent crime problem here. It's fueled by the drugs, so we work drugs and violent crime hand in hand. We're trying to take guns away from people that shouldn't have guns, especially violent felons. ATF is doing that as well as we are. U.S. Marshals, DA. So we're all working very collectively to do that. It takes a while. It does.
I think this is very important job because in the paper, in the Arabic section, we have a page that we weekly report about the crime happening in the area.
Yeah.
And every week we have like huge numbers, so we pick like some that are close to our community.
Yeah.
So what about the organized crime? Do you...
It's organized crime and violent crime. It kind of goes not hand in hand, but there's a lot of drugs are an organized crime ring, right?
Right.
You talk robberies, there's organized crime rings doing robberies. Be it Sprint stores or Verizon stores or anything that involves interstate. The FBI gets involved when that's a interstate crime. Otherwise sometimes it's a state and local crime.
Yeah.
Straight robbery or home invasion, or whatever, would just be a local crime. But what we're trying to do is bring the federal government resources to help out,
like Dearborn or Dearborn Heights or DPD, Detroit, so that they can keep their officers on the street and handling that stuff, while we try to take more of the organized crime aspect of it, but we all work hand in hand, so.
Thank you very much, and I wish you the best.
Thank you, appreciate it.
And you're welcome to our community.
Thank you.
Let me ask a question about border entry and stuff like that. You are not involved in interrogation at the border entry at all?
Not as people walking in. If there's someone that is suspected of activity or whatever, we might get called in, or we have a case on somebody or whatever, then we might get called in to interview.
But you're not there.
Not every day in those lanes or whatever,
Yeah.
that we have, we don't have people assigned to that,
To the
to ask those questions, yeah. So, but sometimes we do get involved in some of the interviews and stuff like that. So-
But the list that came out there, it's nicknamed the terrorist watch list, right? And that made some headlines last year. And from what the public learned was that there was some interagency sort of trade, or right, like this information is sort of available to numerous agencies. Goes down to the municipal level. And is that something the FBI does have access to? So this the same sort of database that the USCIS is using, perhaps, right? Is the FBI?
I think they're in charge of the FBI is in charge of the center, the terror screening center.
Yeah.
FBI is in
yeah.
charge. Oh, I
Yeah,
see.
terror screen,
So
TSC
it's-
is, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so it's
The-
originally.
all the agencies are involved, but the people who are in charge of the clearance
Mhm.
center is
Yeah,
there.
so those centers are basically what we would call like a fusion center, so that everyone kind of gets involved.
Mhm.
And it's a sharing of information. So what we learned from 9/11 was the fact that we were not sharing amongst each other,
Okay.
right? We had walls. You want to talk walls with the community, we also have walls amongst each other, right? And that did us no favors on 9/11, because there was an attack that maybe we could have stopped. So gathering together in groups like that, and what fusion centers, or what I would say fusion center, or terror screening center, is the fact that we can share information collectively across all lines, so that we can maybe find an act or something that's going to happen prior to it happening, be more proactive. If that makes sense.
But those decisions are made within the agency itself, like the U.S. If there is a policy along the border or at the airport, that is a USCIS policy.
That's somebody at headquarters or Congress doing that type of stuff. So, yeah.
Okay. I wanted to thank you for coming here. And,
the press liaison.
we just
Oh, you
met,
are?
but
Okay.
apparently things are
Okay,
Yeah,
so I can
absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
hand over